everybody, and welcome to our show, Beyond Your Screen. I'm Elizabeth.
And I'm Blogsy. And here on our channel, we intend to dive headfirst into some of the world's most interesting tales.
We're going to be discussing a wide variety of topics, from murder mysteries to origin stories, urban legends, and much, much more.
So drop a like, hit that subscribe button, and join us as we explore the mysteries and scandals that happened beyond your screen.
And welcome back to another episode of Beyond Your Screen. With Thanksgiving on its way, we thought we might take a look at the most grateful and most ungrateful characters in cinematic history.
Now, in comparison to our last ranking video, which we will link down below, this list is considerably smaller. Only 26 people in this one, more or less.
Whereas in our Simpsons video, we had 35 treehouses of horror divided into 105 individual segments, and then on top of that, you double it because we did each a separate list.
This list was split up between the two of us. There are 10 grateful, 10 ungrateful, and 3 honorable mentions in each category.
Now, we each have a list of our top 5 in both categories. We also will discuss the honorable mentions together, and reveal our top picks for each category.
But we will not be including characters like the Grinch or George Bailey. Characters that had a miraculous event that changed their outlook on life.
So, let's jump right into it, starting off with our picks of the most ungrateful and why we think they deserve to be on this list.
And kicking off our list for our top 5 most ungrateful characters is Elizabeth.
My number 5 is Mrs. Bennet from Pride and Prejudice. Now, I've never seen Pride and Prejudice up until a few weeks ago. Don't judge me for that one. I couldn't quite ever get behind it. I didn't really understand it. And then I sat down and I watched the 6-part BBC miniseries released in 1995. And I'm going to say it was pretty decent. It's not one of my favorites, but I wouldn't object to watching Pride and Prejudice again, or even one of its different renditions. But Mrs. Bennet, the one thing that I did notice over everything while I was watching this miniseries is just how unbelievably whiny this woman is. You watched it with me. It was always, Mr. Bennet this, Mr. Bennet do that. Oh, Mr. Bennet never ever.
She whines about everything throughout the entirety of the series, that is correct.
And she constantly is harassing her husband about how he never invites men over or
to court their
has
daughters.
A party to court the daughters. Anything. Everything Mr. Bennet is just wrong. And then anybody, if you ever wonder why he's held up in his study the whole
all
time.
the time.
He's got his nose buried in a book. He would rather do taxes than sit and have a conversation with his wife.
Alright, kicking off at my number 5 spot is Uncle Frank from Home Alone. Because who better than good old Uncle Frank to be at the bottom of the ungrateful list? One of the most ungrateful characters in cinematic history, starring in the hit film Home Alone in 1990 and the sequel in 1992. Uncle Frank is cheap, rude, and as this list describes, wholly unthankful. He steals from the airlines, he refuses to pay for anything, he makes crude jokes at everyone's expenses, etc., etc. There's even a peculiar deleted scene in which he pulls down Kevin McAllister's pants.
Hey, you! Parlez-vous français yet, Squirt, huh?
My name's Kevin.
Your name's Kevin? You know what they're gonna call you in France, don't you, huh?
No.
Yank!
Overall, a character that is the personification of all those qualities none of us want.
I do believe at one point in the first movie, he compares leaving Kevin behind to losing his reading glasses.
He does, on the plane.
Right after he steals the crystal that they were serving the champagne in. For my number 4, I have Ariel from The Little Mermaid. Now, some of you, before you hear me out, don't go writing angry comments down below. She's a princess, and she wants to travel the world. Okay, that's fine. Everybody, when they reach a certain age, wants to start traveling the world. It's most everybody's dream.
Yes.
It's more likely that you want to go travel the world, and only a few % of people are comfortable where they are. But what my issue is, she blatantly disobeys her father, goes sees Ursula, and swaps out her voice for a pair of legs, all against his wishes, and I think it sends a bad message to children. It's basically saying that it's okay not to listen to your parents, ignore everything they teach you, and then there's no consequences in the end because she ends up with Prince Eric.
And ultimately, she gets good results for her disobedience and lack of forethought and judgment.
Exactly. She ends up marrying the prince. Now, this is our personal opinion, but I think she's wholly ungrateful for everything her father did for her.
And kicking it off at my number 4 spot is Cal Hockley from Titanic. He spends the whole movie being loud, demanding, and overbearing. He's condescending to Jack when they're having dinner. He snaps at the paid help, generally talks to them like they're not even human beings. And when it's all said and done, he survives the sinking of the Titanic. He gets back to the States. Then when the stock market crashes, he shoots himself. Because in his mind, it's better to be dead than without the power to control people.
And at my number 3, I have Gale from the Hunger Games. Now, again, I know that the last 2 could be controversial, and so could this one. And I understand that he is under a horrible dictatorship that wants to keep them strong enough to play in the games, but yet weak enough to where they won't uprise and overthrow the government and all that kind of stuff. But I wish you cared more about the nerdy stuff I was into to have a discussion. But he doesn't watch the Hunger Games when I watch them. He's never read any of the books, but I've read all of the books and seen all the movies. And the only thing, one of the big things, if I had to boil it down to one thing that makes me Team Peeta over Team Gale, is the boys' attitudes. And Gale is just wholly ungrateful for everything. He can hunt and scavenge for food, and he and Katniss are both willing to do so. They may not be the only ones who can, but they are the only ones who are willing to cross the fence and go illegally hunt. And instead of being grateful that he has an ability to feed his family better than anybody else in District 12, he's complaining about everything that they do have.
Alright, coming in at my number 3 is Mr. Burns from The Simpsons. A character that, according to canon, left his poor family unhesitantly to go live with, quote, a twisted and heartless billionaire. Though there are many different explanations on how he attained his fortune, we're going with the explanation from Season 5, Episode 4, entitled Rosebud. He leaves his poor family to live with a billionaire. He sees the residents of Springfield as nothing more than dollar signs, and often mistreats his company's top employee, Waylon Smithers, in a variety of ways we won't go into, except the one big one. He concealed the true manner of Waylon's death from Smithers for many years.
And then my number 2 is Veruca Salt from Willy Wonka. And I'm specifically talking about the Gene Wilder, the very first one. The Johnny Depp one, that's just weird. The children are just weird and annoying, but in the Gene Wilder one, this girl is so unbelievably loud and obnoxious. She has no fear of being a public nuisance, and she is totally emasculating her father to an audience. Julie Dawn Cole, who played Veruca Salt, had no idea how to act like a brat. Like that thoroughly disgusting, I want it now kind of mentality. She didn't have it. It took them 36 tries just to get a take that where they actually believed she was willing to destroy an entire factory just to get her one golden egg.
Yeah, good person, bad acting.
Exactly. No, great acting.
Great acting.
Horrible character.
I'm saying 35 takes prior.
Yeah.
But coming in at my number 2 is Ruby Deagle from Gremlins. Basically Scrooge in female form. She offers no help to a family struggling to make ends meet during the holidays. She tells the main character Billy to hand over his dog, or she will steal and torture the dog, named Barney. She's pushy, demanding, sour, and threatening.
And now we're going to jump into our honorable mentions, starting off with J. Jonah Jameson from Spider-Man.
Loud, snappy, and generally disgruntled with everyone he works with.
And then we've got the Cramnins from the Honeymooners.
Always fighting with each other, always upset, and never ever seem to be happy with what they have in life.
And our number 1, Carla Tortelli from Cheers.
Watch any episode of Cheers. That'll explain it.
She's in all of them. You just flip on the first one, the last one, or anyone in between. My number 1 for ungrateful characters who it doesn't compare to his, but it kind of does because there's more of her. Mrs. Olsen from Little House on the Prairie. 9 seasons of nothing but nagging Nels.
Oh, when is somebody gonna do something around here about that screen door? That's what I'd like to know.
Well, pour it over my head so I can get the soap out.
Yes, my dear.
Nels! You boiled my head!
I'm sorry. What happened?
Come on, Nels. Come along. Hurry.
I'm doing the best I can.
Oh, well, it's your fault for letting Doc Baker have the buckboard.
No, no, no!
What did you do that? You did that on purpose. You doesn't. No.
Being a good-for-nothing, nosy woman.
It here. You've heard the news, haven't you? Oh, you haven't? Oh, well, I hate to be the one to spread bad news, but Laura and Almanzo are getting divorced.
A lot of...
Nels Olson, this telephone switchboard was my idea, and I will spread whatever I want on it.
Mrs. Foster?
Mrs. Oh, for heaven's sake, what on earth is wrong now?
Harriet, the switchboard may be yours, but the wire is mine.
And using what little power she does have to bully the people of Walnut Grove.
It's about time you found out who wears the pants in this family. From now on, I will judge the eggs around here.
Fine. You go right ahead and judge them.
Alice Garvey,
Yes, Mrs. Olsen.
there must have been some terrible mistake. Why, it's impossible that my Nellie didn't win. Obviously, you graded the papers incorrectly.
I don't understand.
These eggs are not up to standard.
She's just mean and bitter and
Entitled.
entitled is a big one. And the only way to even make her semi-decent is to pacify her by naming the blind school after her or giving her what she wants, and she's not genuine in any sense of reality when it comes to her actually pretending to be nice. Anytime she's nice, it's to get something. And this is another instance of hate the character, love the actress, because Catherine McGregor was an absolutely wonderful woman. She was a saint. Everybody loved her. Everybody thought she was the sweetest woman on the planet, but she did an absolutely amazing job of making you hate Mrs. Olsen.
That she did. And my number 1. the most ungrateful character that we could think of or come up with. Let us know down in the comments what your personal opinion is, but ours is Baby Jane Hudson from the movie Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. She's ungrateful for everything, and Baby Jane Hudson had it all. Wealth, fame, a supporting family. Even at the dramatic climax of the film, we realize that the one insane moment of violence that her sister Blanche attempted was caused by years of abuse from Baby Jane herself. She starts the film badly and ends it far, far worse. She starts as a brat and ends as a murderer. She kills her housekeeper, beats her sister, and drinks herself into oblivion, ultimately becoming uglier and uglier and uglier until the grand finale of the film, when she finally loses her mind.
And my number 5 is Arthur Christmas from Arthur Christmas. Now, he's on this list because I think he is genuinely the embodiment of Santa, other than the fact that he's, in the movie built like a pole. He'll grow into the big jolly belly. But he is loving, compassionate, forgiving, and above all, he's just thankful for everything he has around him. And the thing is, he doesn't really have a reason to, because his brother degrades him, the elves disrespect him, his grandfather manipulates him, and his parents more or less ignore him. And he's aware of all of these things, but yet he still smiles, does his job, and is just happy that he's a Claus.
This is a great movie that we watched whenever when
it first
we
came out.
went to go see it in theaters when it first came out, in 3D actually.
We did watch it in 3D.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, that was really awesome. Watching the elves tape just.
Anyway, coming in at my number 5 is Del Griffith from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
A perfect Thanksgiving movie.
In a sentence, he's just happy to be there. He has absolutely no one in his life and travels the country trying to forget that his wife's passed away. When he meets Neil, played excellently by Steve Martin, and they're forced to travel together. He doesn't really complain about the way Neil treats him particularly throughout the film. He looks for solutions in the bright side of every situation they come across, as opposed to his cynical mate throughout the film.
And then I have at number 4, Buddy from Elf. He is mistreated by his biological father throughout 95% of the movie, and he never, ever complains about the fact that he doesn't fit any of the facilities in the North Pole. And he's 6'3", Will Ferrell. And he doesn't fit a lot of stuff like down here where we live, let alone in the North Pole. But if I had to be honest about the entire movie, I really hate it. In my personal opinion. It doesn't.
Why?
It's just not fun. He's so annoying if you're past the age of 8 years old.
It is not. Everyone loves that movie.
Nobody loves that movie. Are you nuts? He's annoying, and
I will not stand
so
for your buddy
ignorant.
bashing.
Don't you stop. It's not buddy bashing. It's a fact.
Are
No.
a cotton-headed ninny muggins. And I would like to finish by apologizing for my previous vulgar remarks. Moving on to my number 4. Steve Urkel from Family Matters. Someone who makes the most of everything. Stephen Quincy Urkel. A man whose parents are rarely seen, is a social outcast, and who's in love with a woman who never quite reciprocates his affections. Laura Winslow. There's even an episode in which an angel switches Laura and Steve to show her what it would be like for her if the roles were reversed. There's also an episode in which he talks to Laura and he says, "Loving you is like trying to touch a star. You know you'll never reach it, but you have to keep trying." Someone who's truly abused and outcast. He helps everyone as much as he can throughout the show despite their abuse, and perseveres until Laura eventually loves him back.
I believe that episode where they switch That's a Christmas episode,
It is
right?
a Christmas episode.
So keep that in mind for the holiday season coming up here in a few weeks. We're going to go with my number 3. I have Fred and George Weasley from Harry Potter. Have you really seen the Harry Potter movies, or is this a Hunger Games thing?
I have seen the Harry Potter films. I just don't pay much attention to those two.
They're two of my favorite characters. They really are, and the reason that they are is because they basically are goofy and mischievous during the entire franchise. They do not disregard the fact that they're basically fighting a war, and there are multiple battles going on every year. But they try to,
bring some levity to the
exactly.
situation.
And they are just far more jovial and bright and happy, and they always try to look for that silver lining in any situation to make someone laugh or just to make someone feel a little less uncomfortable with what's going on, because they know that if they really did let the gravity of what's going on get to them, it would just, everyone would be depressed, and they don't want that to happen. And so I think that they're just happy that they have each other. Do you want me to spoil it a little bit for you? One of them dies.
I remember that.
Okay,
part.
I didn't know if you know that part.
I've seen it.
But even after that,
he gets stabbed in the ear and he calls his head holy.
How are you feeling, Georgie?
Saint-like.
Come again?
Saint-like. I'm holy. I'm holy, Fred. You get it?
The whole wide world of ear-related humour, and you go for I'm holy. It's pathetic.
Reckon I'm still better looking than you.
At my number 3, we have Lewis Tully from the Ghostbusters. A man who stayed cheery through everything. And when I say everything, I pretty much mean everything. Throughout 2 movies worth of ghouls, goo, slime, etc., Lewis Tully has truly seen it all. But he keeps himself upbeat throughout both of the films. Having in the first film being turned into a horrible creature, and the second one he had to take up a proton pack to help his employers. He remains thankful throughout, becoming the Ghostbusters accountant after the events of the first film, and remaining in their employment throughout his entire run of the second film.
for my number 2, I have Mr. Magoo. Now, even though Mr. Magoo is blind, he is always smiling or laughing or even singing. I know there's many different versions of the Mr. Magoo.
Jim Backus did the original cartoon, and then there was a film with Leslie Nielsen.
And I love them both. I really do. The old cartoon and the movie. Mr. Magoo is always just genuinely happy in everything. And, even if he turns around and realizes that he just crossed over a 3-story building, over rafters and crane operators giving him a hand and all this kind of stuff, he never quits. He's just always smiling and happy. And I think he's just thankful for what he does have and doesn't focus on the fact that he's going blind, if he even acknowledges the fact that he's blind.
Don't think he does. I think that's the point of Mr. Magoo. Anyway, at my second spot, we have Woody from Cheers. A man who came into our world and gave us plenty of memorable moments. We speak of the down-to-earth country boy, Woody Boyd. Making his Cheers debut in the first episode of Season 4, after Coach Ernie Pantuso sadly passed away, played by Nicholas Colasanto, who the actor actually passed away. The true friend, he strives to be the best friend and an even better employee. In fact, when Sam inquires about hiring him, he says, "I'd work like a slave. I wouldn't take anything more than minimum wage, and of course I'd wash your car. And if you ever need someone to just yell at, I'm your man." Then, finally, Woody is hired, and he says, "You won't regret it, Mr. Malone. I love bartending. You get behind a bar, and right away strangers are your best friends. But let me make one thing clear. One mistake, and I'm out on my butt." Grateful for his job, friends, and family. That's why he nearly makes the top billing, but falls short to my personal number 1.
My second
On
one
to
is
the
Mr. Magoo.
honorable mentions.
And
Okay.
that is number 3, Carlton Banks.
From the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, he's rich and he knows it. He doesn't take it for granted, and he actually strives to be better. and he constantly is telling Will what a great life they have.
I love Carlton. He's the best character in Fresh Prince. And we've got Odie from Garfield.
Adores John and Garfield, even though Garfield treats him like absolute trash. John doesn't pay much attention to him, instead focuses on his stupid cat. But Odie is just happy to be there.
And then, for our last honorable mention, we've got the Nortons, also from the Honeymooners.
They're in the same social standing as the previously mentioned Cramdens, but don't spend their days complaining, like Alice and Ralph. We truly feel like they love each other, and are thankful that if all else fails, they have each other.
My number one for the most... Who's your number one? Let me see. Oh, yeah. We'll go with mine, because I love this character. He's part of my life growing up, and it's Quasimodo from The Hunchback of Notre Dame. And I think he is the most grateful because he is abused and manipulated his entire life. Frollo is rude and demanding, and he is absolutely cruel to Quasimodo. He really is. And the thing is, Quasimodo doesn't know better. So he just takes the abuse, and he takes it thankfully. He's thankful that Frollo put a roof over his head and occasionally swings by with food and doesn't completely forget about him. And he doesn't actually know what real love is until Esmeralda shows up and shows him what a true friend should be like. And that's why he's at my number one, because I think out of all of these characters we have on this list, he really did go through the most misery in his life.
But who really is the most grateful character of all time? I answered this question. The embodiment of all things that men hope to be. Great father, loving husband, a man with rippling muscles, and his own business. No, it's not you, Dad. A man with all this who is exceedingly thankful to the Lord above for all of his blessings. We speak, of course, of Ned Flanders. Thankful for all of his blessings and helpful to those around, Ned Flanders strives always to be truly kind to others, a great family man, and even the best of neighbors and best of friends with his oafish neighbor Homer Simpson. He embodies all of the qualities we strive for, on top of having one of the world's coolest mustaches. And that's why he gets top billing on my list of grateful characters.
Alrighty, that wraps it up. We've gone through both our lists. We've compared. Why don't you let us know down in the comments what you think?
And make sure to like and subscribe and share this video with a friend.
And be sure to join us for more adventures beyond your screen.